Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you with another deck profile, and for today's video we're going to be doing an updated Rescue-Ace deck. Now this is going to be a pure Rescue-Ace deck, so that means we're not going to be doing any fun shenanigans with other engines such as like Fire King or Azamina, anything like that. It's just good old-fashioned summon Hydrant, summon Turbulence, set 4, pass. And honestly, I think it's fine. And there's nothing wrong with going back to the basics, right? You don't always have to go like super combo heavy. It's perfectly okay if you just want to like do something pretty simple and just relax and have a good time. So with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. As always, we're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, and we're of course going to be playing 3 Rescue-Ace Airlifter. So Airlifter is basically the go-to normal summon or special summon in the deck, if you can get it out that way, as its effect is you're able to search your deck for any Rescue-Ace spell and add it to your hand. So yeah, this is pretty much going to be like your go-to starter if you have it, just because it really does open up so much of the deck. As what you're typically want to do with this is you're going to want to add the emergency, and then the emergency is going to special summon out the Hydrant while attributing the Airlifter or something else, if you want to get something out of your hand. And then the Hydrant will in turn be able to add the Turbulence, and then after this, you're going to have the Turbulence be special summoned because you have 2 Rescue-Ace cards in your graveyard, and if the Rescue-Ace Turbulence resolves, then you just straight up win the game. So if this card resolves, the chances of you just winning the game right then and there are pretty big, because a lot of decks do have difficulty just straight up outing the general Rescue-Ace board, especially when this deck goes first, right? It's just one of those decks that just puts up way too much advantage for most decks to handle, and it really just does get out of hand very quickly for your opponent. And then as for its other effect, if your opponent decides to activate a monster effect on the field, you can either tribute this card from your hand or face up field, special summon a Rescue-Ace from your hand, which, I mean, it's fine. It's nowhere near as effective as like Impulse, but it's okay because the on summon effect is just phenomenal at helping you get your engine going. And then speaking of Impulse, that is also a card that we'll be playing at 3. Now for its primary effect, it's able to basically break your opponent's board going second, right? As you target a monster that they control with the highest attack, and then you negate it, and it's fine. I mean, it's not that it negates it, it's just that neither player can activate that monster's effects this turn. And obviously this card sucks going first because it just does not do anything. But like I said, this is basically just there to help you break your opponent's board a little bit more easily, just because this deck does struggle going second. However, its other effect, where it's pretty similar to Airlifter, and if your opponent activates a monster effect, you get a tribute, whatever. This one is able to special summon from the deck instead of from the hand. So if you're going second, you definitely prefer opening up the Impulse to the Airlifter, just because it basically allows you to get access to whatever card you want from your deck, whether it's like Turbulence, Hydrant, Preventer, whatever, and just pretty much start snowballing from there, and hopefully being able to out-resource your opponent to the point where by the time your turn starts, you basically have everything set up, and you've wasted your opponent's resources while they try to deal with the cards that you set up. So yeah, 3 Impulse, 3 Airlifter, gotta play 3 of each. And then for the 2 ofs, we're playing 2 Rescue-Ace Hydrant. So this is a card that I'm constantly going back and forth on if I want to play 2 or if I want to play 3, especially because this is a more pure variant. So in theory, right, you'd want to max out on something like this because it does give you access to any Rescue-Ace monster, but it's still an inferior normal summon to the Airlifter. That's why one of the main reasons why I don't really want to play 3. And then we have so many different ways just to have access to this card in general, right? So we can get it through our Impulse effect to summon it from the deck during our opponent's turn, or even our turn if they already have like a monster and we went second or whatever. We can normal summon it, obviously. We can get it out through 1-for-1. We can get it out through emergency. We just have so many different ways to access this card that it just doesn't feel like we need 3, even though sometimes I am considering it. So yeah, for now, Rescue-Ace Hydrant at 2, perfectly fine. And then for the other 2 of, we're playing 2 Rescue-Ace Turbulence. So this one, if its effect resolves, is to set up to 4 Rescue-Ace spells and traps from your deck with different names. And as stated earlier, if this effect resolves, you've basically just won the game right then and there, because your opponent is going to have an extremely difficult time just pushing through all your spells and traps, especially because a lot of them gain extra effects if Hydrant is on the field, right? And with the way that the current metagame is shaking out, a lot of decks aren't even playing backer removal anymore, so you're not going to see Cosmic, you're not going to see Duster, you're not going to see Evenly Matched, just because those cards are just so ineffective against Malice and Rezeal. So like, you're going to have such an easy time going first, especially games 2 and 3, because people are just not prepared to deal with this deck effectively. And a lot of the times, just that surprise can just catch people off guard and win you the game straight up. So, yeah, 2 Turbulence, perfectly fine. And then for the 1 of Rescue-Ace monsters, we're just playing 1 Rescue-Ace Preventer. This is another card whose ratios I'm a little iffy on because sometimes you do need the second copy, but in most situations, 1 is perfectly fine. And what this one does is it's a quick play Book of Moon when you have another face-up Rescue-Ace monster on the field. And a lot of decks do crumble to just having their 1 normal summon being booked face down. So that's why this card is good. And as if that wasn't already enough, for whatever reason, this card can also like just recycle your guys. So if it's sent to the graveyard, you're able to special summon a banished Rescue-Ace monster. So yeah, it's pretty solid. And like I said, this is one of those cards that I'm constantly like working on the ratios depending on if I want to play 1, 2. I don't think 3 is ever going to be the right call, but 1 and 2 is definitely like the sweet spot. And then for the final Rescue-Ace monster, we're playing 1 Rescue-Ace Fire Attacker. This card, it's pretty much like the best machine that you can summon if you're going second, as what it does is if your opponent decides to add a card from their deck to their hand, except by drawing, you're able to draw 2 cards and then discard a card. So it just digs your deck even deeper into hand traps so that you can stop your opponent from setting up a huge board. And especially with like Ryzeal currently, right? That deck searches a lot, so this one is pretty much going to be guaranteed to work. And as long as you have like an impulse, you're going to be able to cheat it out, or even a airlifter if you for some reason just open the 1 of in your hand, which does happen sometimes. But yeah, this card just being able to get you more resources to be able to play and stop your opponent is just invaluable. And then that's it for the Rescue-Ace monsters. And then because this is a pure version, we have to play a bunch of hand traps to go with them. And the first ones we're going to be playing are the Bystials. So we're playing the 1 Bystial Magnamhut and the 3 Bystial Druiswurm. I'm still a little iffy and I'm not entirely sold, but like the impact of the Bystials in the current metagame just cannot be understated. They don't really have much synergy with the Rescue-Ace monsters themselves. However, with the most popular deck in the format being Fiendsmith Ryzeal, Druiswurm basically solos that matchup, right? You just hit the map, or no, you just hit either the Requiem or the Engraver, preferably the Engraver so that you don't get hit by Chaos Angel. And then when it comes to your turn, just being able to do something as simple as like Bystial Druiswurm, attack into the detonator if they leave it in attack mode, or if they don't, you could also do like the Nightmare Phoenix play, right? Where you go Chainlink, or you go normal summon anything, send Druiswurm in the other monster, make Phoenix, Chainlink 1 Druis to send Detonator, Chainlink 2 Phoenix to destroy the field spell, and like you've just broken their whole board off of a single card. So yeah, this card, it's so good. But that's it for the Bystials. I don't feel like you need any of the other ones just because they're not anywhere near as effective, right? Like Saronir's, whatever, Baldrake, it's fine, but it really shines when you're playing it in a deck that takes more lights and darks. But 3 Druiswurm, yeah, this card, it's insane right now. And then we're also playing 3 Ash Blossom as like the generic good negate. And then lastly, 3 Nibiru, the primal being. If for some reason your opponent decides to overextend, Nibiru can just straight up end games on its own sometimes. But it is a little bit riskier because some decks do have like built-in ways to just beat this card, so you have to be a little bit smart when you're using it, and you should obviously just not drop it when your opponent hits 5 summons automatically, right? Just because there's so many extenders in the format. But that's an issue for you to figure out. And with that, that's the main deck portion of the deck, and now we can finally move on to the spell and traps. Now that we're on the spell and trap portion of the video, we're going to be starting with probably the more controversial of the spells and traps that I'm playing, being 3 Pot of Extravagance. So I was never really sure if I wanted to go with 3 Extravagance or if I wanted to go with like 3 Pot of Desires, or even if I wanted to do something a little bit more like just playing 1 Pot of Prosperity with some other tech cards. And ultimately, I just decided to go with Extravagance because since this is a pure version, your extra deck genuinely doesn't even really matter all that much. It just means that you have to play multiples of all the good cards just to ensure that you don't like accidentally banish everything, as opposed to Pot of Desires where it's much of like the same philosophy where we already max out on a lot of the cards that we would be playing at 3, so the chances of us hitting something is honestly pretty slim. But I didn't really want to risk hitting any of like our 1 of Rescue-Ace spells and traps because they are pretty important at just helping us win the game, right? So ultimately, I decided Pot of Extravagance would probably be the best one because the extra deck matters a little bit less than the main deck, and it's basically just a free draw too, right? And it's also fantastic at helping you bait out cards like Ash Blossom that would otherwise normally hurt your deck, especially on like the emergency, trying to special summon from the deck, or a Hydrant or an Airlifter trying to add something. So yeah, 3 pots, pretty good card when it's able to resolve. And then to go with our 3 pot of extravagances, we're playing 3 emergencies. So this is the only Rescue-Ace spell and trap that we play at 3, and it's for a very good reason, right? As you activate it, you can special summon any Rescue-Ace monster from your deck, and then you have to tribute a Rescue-Ace monster from your hand or field. And that means that you can just activate emergency, special summon a monster, and then tribute that same monster, which does come up sometimes just in order to help you get like fodder in the graveyard or whatever, in case you want to be able to summon like a Preventer or a Turbulence. But yeah, this card, in addition to being able to do that, also allows you to dodge a lot of very impactful cards like Infinite Impermanence or Effect Failure that your opponent will be using on you, right? As you can just go normal summon Hydrant, activate Effect of Search, they'll go Imperm, you chain Emergency, you tribute the Hydrant that you activated, so it dodges the effect and you still get the search and you get a free summon. So this card, it's so good. And that's it for the 3 ofs, and then after that we just have a bunch of 1-of spells. So we have the Rescue-Ace HQ to recycle all of our Rescue-Ace cards. We have 1 Alert, which can either add a Rescue-Ace monster from our graveyard to our hand, or if we have Hydrant, we can add a Rescue-Ace monster from our deck. So it's either a Searcher or a card that recycles our resources, depending on if we have Hydrant or not, which can matter a lot. Then we have Rescue, which is either a free Reborn, or if we have Hydrant, it basically becomes Shark Cannon, so we can take an opponent's monster and then special summon that card instead. And it's just, they're just really solid, whether you have Hydrant or not. So yeah, I gotta play 1 of each. And then for the normal spells, we play 1 Triple Tactics Thrust, as this card is just bonkers right now, especially with so many different decks playing cards such as like Nibiru, which ideally never gets dropped on you, because in a pure version you're typically just going to go for like 3 to 4 summons and then just pass turn, but you never know. And even then, going second, this card just breaks most boards. So yeah, I gotta play at least 1 Thrust, and then what you're typically going to be searching off of that can either be your Triple Tactics talent to take or draw or look at your opponent's hand, the 1-for-1, which will allow us to have access to our Rescue-Ace Hydrant, or the Reinforcement of the Army, which searches out either your Airlifter or your Impulse, because they are both warrior monsters for whatever reason. And then that's it for the spells. And then for the traps, we're playing 3 Infinite Impermanence, because it's just a good card whether you're going first or second. Or we're playing the 1 Contain and the 1 Extinguish. And with that, that's the main deck. Should be 40 cards like always, unless I made a mistake somewhere, which is very possible. So feel free to call me out if I did. And with that, we can finally move on to the extra deck portion. Now, when it comes to the extra deck, as I stated previously, because we are playing Pot of Extravagance, you are going to be a lot more limited than normal. So basically what you have to do is basically just max out on all your good cards that allow you to break your opponent's board, or allow you to accomplish your game plan more easily. So some of them, like the more impactful ones, right? SP Little Knight, Promethean Princess, Anima as like the only link 1 option that we have, because sometimes you do just need like a link 1 monster to be able to get your Hydrant in the graveyard and have fodder for your other cards. Or even something like Hida the Charmer or Blaze, right? You're going to get hit by Ash Blossom at some point, so being able to take their Ash and then go into a link 3, namely Promethean Princess, is valuable in order to just, you know, continue playing and just stunt on your opponent. But there are so many cards that it's hard to choose effectively. Like you can go 3 of each, you can go 2, and then have like 1 just random card. But these aren't even just like the good cards that you can play, right? Like there's Typhon, there's the Salamangreat Raging Phoenix, which in turn means you're playing World Dragon Sea Lantis. Just good generic link monsters like Nightmare Phoenix. Like I can go on and on and on. But the point is that because we are playing Extravagance, you basically have to play multiples of whatever you choose to play. Obviously, this would be mitigated if you decide to play something else like Pot of Desires, but then the risk of just banishing all your 1-of spells and traps doesn't really sit well with me. And then you can also just go for like Prosperity and then try and have like a couple more cool text that maybe will get your point across. You could even try like Pot of Duality. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it because you do need a special summon, but hey, the choice is there, right? But yeah, with that, that's the Rescue-Ace deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!